So by the time it got to the late 70s, I would have been in my teens, 14, 15, 16, somewhere like that. And as an exercise one day, the class was asked just to write something, personal that meant something in their lives. Now, there's always in the classes, there's the bully, the joker, the kind of politician that keeps on the right side of everybody, the quiet, the bullied, put upon. There's always those kind of people. And then you've always got the quiet one. And in our case, there was a guy, he was, no doubt about it, he was the tallest guy in the class. He was well over 6 feet tall, and he was only, as I said, in his mid-teens at the time. Very quiet guy called Corrigan. I always remember the name. We would, of course, nickname him Curro. And he was liked by everybody, but he was tall, dark and handsome and quiet. He had a lovely way about him. He was quiet. He wasn't like a little me going, hee, some kind of a frustrated, sad, pathetic entertainer. Not at all. He was his own man. He had a depth about him and a dignity. But he was quiet, very, very quiet. The quintessential gentle giant. Anyway, this exercise to write about something that meant, or a situation or whatever that meant something to you, was put before the class. So everybody gave their, I saw the match last week, and I love Elvis, and whatever else it was that you'd write about, when you're 15, 16 years of age. It came to this guy's time to read what he had written. And I still remember it all these years later, and I hope you're still alive, Corrigan, because you may not remember it. The last time I saw him, actually, I was in sales in the 80s, and I was doing my rounds, and he was an elevator engineer for one of the bigger companies like Schindler's or one of those. And I'd say it was well paid. So we had a little chat. That was in Ranelagh in Dublin, sometime in after we'd all left school. But anyway, back to this situation. So it's a sunny day. Picture the scene. We're in these big old Edwardian Victorian houses. The windows are tall. They're the ones with the kind of 12 panes maybe on them, panes of glass. The sun is streaming down into this classroom full of teenage guys, full of young testosterone, puberty, all that stuff in the mix. He gets up to read what he'd written. And he went on, he must have been in love at the time, he went on to describe a girl he knew. And who'd have thought this beautiful sentiment, this voice, came from one that you did not really associate with being eloquent or verbose or articulate. They're all ways of saying the same thing, really, aren't they? It's just me bullshitting. And he said, let's call her Susan. And he says, hi, Susan, by the way, in Yorkshire. Susan, this isn't for you. Let's say her name was Susan. And he said, Susan, again I'm paraphrasing, is the most beautiful girl I've ever looked at in my life. And he's putting it far better now than what I'm doing. And he said, when I saw her, there was a stillness about her. The clearness of her eyes. The way her hair flowed. How she held herself. The sound of her voice. The way she made time for me when she would look into my eyes. How friendly she was to me. I've always loved Susan. I've loved her from the first day I laid eyes on her. I would never do wrong by her. I would love Susan in my life. She is the epitome of femininity. She's gentle, she's kind, and I love her. And we were all agog. And I know it struck me. It must have struck other people in the class. I think the teacher was open-mouthed. And as I said, I'm not doing Curro justice, because he had a gifted way about him. here I am in 2024. And suddenly I'm back in 1976, 77, 78. And listening to a guy who is quite obviously a beautiful soul and in love. I hope he met Susan or similar, and I'm going to play this for him now. Remember, like and subscribe, folks. Get in touch, comments below, or please, this much is true, at protonmail.com. As aforementioned, I am going to play this song now from my friend, Coral.